This is the CHRILLCAST. I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
And I'm RGT.
RGT, why don't you tell everybody about your channel real quick?
So I make video game content pretty much daily on the channel. It's not the greatest, but hey, it gets the job done.
That's not what your description says. It says RGT85 brings the best content in the world of retro gaming with a dash of modern gaming thrown in. From the NES to current gen.
Things have changed.
You'll find a wide variety of retro news, reviews, features, and much more. And it's working for you. You got 71 million views, so, you know.
Hey.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about what, Will?
The SEGA Saturn.
And obviously we have the expert here on the SEGA Saturn, Mr. RGT over here.
I do enjoy the SEGA Saturn.
So I'm going to give you guys some stats, and then we'll just talk. It was originally released almost 25 years ago on May 11th, 1995 in North America. It was released in November of 94 in Japan and July of 1995 in Europe. But it sold 9.26 million units worldwide and was considered a commercial failure, which, I don't know, almost 10 million units can't be a commercial. It can be a commercial failure, but not a failure in general because it's still got a user base. It was discontinued in 98 in North America and Europe, and in 2000 in Japan. The best-selling games from the platform, which I actually originally found out from RGT's channel, so go watch his video on that if you're into that kind of thing. But the top 10 were Madden NFL 97, the Knights, I'm assuming that's Knights into Dreams, Virtua Fighter 2 Daytona USA, Virtua Cop, Tomb Raider, Sega Rally Championship, Sonic 3D Blast, World Series Baseball, and Panzer Dragoon.
I honestly didn't realize that Tomb Raider was on that platform.
What?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed that.
Yeah, it's much better than the Nokia N-Gage.
Yeah.
The most popular opinion as to why the Saturn failed in North America, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that Sega had completely confused and betrayed the loyalty of its customers with the 32X and CD attachments to the Genesis prior to the launch of the Saturn.
Yes and no. I would say more of it came down to the launch of the system. They botched the launch so bad that it never could recover from it because developers, consumers, and people that sell games weren't ready for it. And then they were like, "Hey, it's out today!" during E3 '95, and everyone was like, "What? Like, why?"
And only some retailers had it, right? Only a few.
Yeah, and people were scrambling.
The other thing that I remember hearing, and I don't remember whose channel I heard it on, but essentially some of the retailers felt betrayed by Sega by not having that on the shelves when they said it was already out, and then they didn't want to stock it. It's like, why would I stock this?
Yep, it was a huge mistake. Like I don't know why they did it that way, but stories came out as to why they did it that way. But yeah, it was just there was a lot of internal problems at Sega that caused things like that. So it's unfortunate.
And it's one of the few consoles in the 90s that I know of that doesn't have a lot of great emulation already available.
I have heard really good things about that new system, the Polymega.
Yeah.
Modern Vintage Gamer is doing a video on it that will be out by the time that this goes live. And yeah, he did, he put it through the test with Sega Saturn stuff and said it was great.
Huh. Well, that'll be the first physical good emulation that I've heard of anyway.
Oh yeah.
That'd be cool to hear. Actually, I'd be really excited to see that. How many Saturn consoles do you have?
Just one. Just my one original Saturn that I've had forever.
It's the original black one, right? Not like a custom Japanese gray one or anything like that.
Yeah, just a standard black one.
And you buy it at launch?
No. This Saturn actually I've only had since 2002, maybe 3. My original Sega Saturn that I had, I bought for super cheap when it was being liquidated. So that was just how my parents operated. I had a ton of games for it, and I let some kid borrow it, and I never saw it again.
Oof.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I had some really House of the Dead, which is now like a $200 game. That was one of the games. Shining Force 3. So yeah, I wasn't too happy.
I can't imagine, that would suck to part ways with something like that, especially being from your childhood like that. Well, kind of childhood. I'm assuming. I don't actually know how old you are.
It was early teenage years that I originally got it. So,
what I can say is, as far as what I remember the Genesis quite distinctly, and I remember seeing a Saturn maybe once or twice in the wild when I was, and it was 1995. Yeah, I remember seeing one or two when I was probably 97 time frame, 98 time frame, but it was always like people much older than me that had it. It was never somebody my own age that had it. Most people my age had a Super Nintendo or an N64 at that time. So maybe it'd be better if you told us what you remember about the launch of the Saturn.
Well, I mean, I remember when it first came out, I didn't get one. My mom was teaching preschool, and one of the parents got one. And it was $400, and it came with Daytona USA. And like the whole thing about the Saturn was, it launched with Daytona USA and Virtua Fighter, and they were both two terrible ports because the whole thing was just rushed. They rushed the hell out of it, and it never could regain its footing from that. Plus, the architecture of the system was more designed, and people will argue this point all day, but like you could look at people's quotes that worked at Sega. They went in with a 2D mindset because they didn't think 3D was going to be the future. And of course, 3D was the future. And that's why 3D games on the Sega Saturn were few and far between, especially from third-party companies, because it was a hell of a lot easier to develop for the PlayStation 1 or even the N64 because those systems were designed with that more so in mind.
And it kind of suffered from a similar issue. Like the architecture was weird, kind of like the Atari Jaguar, right? Where the architecture was just not programmer friendly. And a more like modern day example would be like the PS3 was not very developer friendly. And so it took a lot longer to develop a really, really good game in 3D, or a really good game that kind of matched or maxed the system out. And I know you did like the System Pushers video on the Sega Saturn. So that's a good one for people to go check out if they want to see kind of like the System Pushers as that's the right terminology, right? That's what you called it?
Hardware pushers.
Hardware pushers, that's right. Hardware pushers. Where if you want to see some of the more processor heavy visuals and graphics and gameplay, definitely go check out his video on that because it's pretty cool and kind of highlighted some of those things. Saturn's pretty powerful though compared to its competitors, even though it was more 2D focused.
Oh yeah, like it was a very strong system that, in the hands of the right developers, mostly Sega, could do some amazing stuff.
Unfortunately, Sonic wasn't on that list of 3D games, but it also seems like it might have been a technical marvel to get a Sonic game on that system running well, considering what they did with the Dreamcast.
You had Sonic Jam, which was had that 3D hub world in it, which was really cool. And that was like, why didn't you just make a full game based on this? Like, what is wrong with you?
They gave you Sonic R.
I mean, and Sonic R was okay. It was just it controlled terribly, but it was okay. I didn't hate it.
What now that I'm thinking about this, how many games really could take advantage of that joystick they had?
Knights.
That's pretty much it.
Knights. Well, the racing games too. The racing games like Sega Rally definitely benefited from that.
Because it could take the place of the D-pad, similar to the N64, right?
Right.
So you could use it for a lot of games. It's just that they're built for the directional pad, and therefore not exactly optimized for that joystick.
Right. Exactly.
Now, I thought I saw somebody put out a video that Retro Fighters was building a Saturn controller with a joystick like that. Is that something that you think would be good, or just like a Nights into Dreams thing?
I think it could be cool. It's definitely going to be a lot more. It's actually out. It is out?
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was or wasn't. Oh, yeah, because it's a dual purpose one, right? Both the Genesis and the Saturn.
There's the Genesis and the Saturn. Yeah, like it's a good controller. Like, it definitely feels more modern. It has a 6-button layout and it has an analog stick. So, it's still precise and stuff like that. So
it looks a lot like the other couple controllers they put out, but it definitely has its own feel to it versus like their Brawler 64 and the other couple controllers that they put out a Dreamcast, or is it a different company that put out the Dreamcast controller?
It's coming. I don't think it's out yet, because I actually did that video to announce it, and that was the first video I did after I moved, and there was a burp in that video because I hadn't slept and I had just moved the night before, and I told them that I would have the video done on a certain day, and the certain day was the day after I moved. So yeah, that was the greatest video ever.
Is that this guy?
Yep, that's the one.
That's the one. Go check it out. Timestamp for the burp. No, just kidding. But I think it's cool when companies take something like the Retro Fighters team takes a controller and like redesigns it years later to make it more accessible to modern gamers. You know,
especially for a system that sold so terribly.
Right. And now that you got the Polymega, that's cool too, because now you've got multiple ways to play the old games on the old console with new controllers, or on the new Polymega with whatever the Polymega controllers are going to be. I'm not sure if they're USBs or if it's what they're using for that, to be honest with you.
Polymega, I believe they have the standard controller that works on everything, but they also have controllers that are designed to look like the controllers from the respective systems. I don't know if they're USB or just only proprietary controllers, though. That's actually a good question.
Yeah, it'd be something I wouldn't mind knowing, because it'd be cool to find out that your Retro Fighters controller would work on the original hardware and on the Polymega. That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be awesome.
Let me look. I can look real quick. Polymega controllers. So they have wireless controllers, but it's compatible with USB controllers. So
okay.
Yeah, you're good.
So if you can convert, or doesn't Retro Fighters have USB versions of some of their controllers?
They do.
So you could definitely get that if you wanted to. Is this one going to be a wireless, or is it just not showing the wire?
I think it's going to be wireless.
That would be neat, because the Dreamcast could do some pretty cool stuff with some wireless controllers, I think. That's just my opinion.
And someone else just announced who announced a Dreamcast controller? Maybe it was Retro Bit. Somebody else announced the Dreamcast controller
I think
recently.
I think Adam got his hands on one.
I can't recall who the company is though.
I thought
it is Retro Bit. It is Retro Bit.
Let's see, wireless Dreamcast controller. Is this it? I think this is the video where he talks about the one he got. Somebody's been like retrofitting older controllers with like new wireless designs. I don't remember who he said he got it from, but there was like there was a massive wait list for this controller apparently, but Adam waited for it.
Yeah, actually on the 11th. And holy shit, the article that I pulled up is written by someone that I used to work with on the first website that I worked on. Wow.
That's funny.
Is a small world. But yeah, Retro Bit just announced a new Dreamcast controller estimated release, wired and wireless models, estimated release time late 2020.
Is it the Silicon Arrow one? Or is that
no, it's Tweaktown. Tweaktown.
Let's see if I can find it. I'm just curious now. It's not coming up on mine.
Yeah, I typed in Dreamcast controller and it popped up in top stories for me.
Huh. I'll just type in Tweaktown then. Retro Bit, there it is. That's probably the one, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Mr. Strickland. All right.
Eric Strickland.
Hey, it looks pretty cool though. Definitely feels like the old controller.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we've lost completely of track of the Sega Saturn at this point. Definitely go check out the videos I referenced.
Essentially what happened when it launched as well.
Yeah, right.
We're just waiting for the next one.
I guess the next question we need to talk about is, what do we think we can learn from the commercial failure of the system sales for the Saturn? What can be gleaned from that as a business case going forward?
Don't launch a system without telling people first.
Sony.
Yeah. That was.
I'm curious.
That was a horrible idea.
I mean, you could be mysterious, but I'm wondering when Sony's actually going to drop details on the PS5 more than just a guy talking in a stand, and I wish I knew too.
Like it's crazy how we don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it'll affect Sony quite as much as it affected Sega in the 90s, but I still think it's causing like like even Will said earlier today, he's like, I'm a little nervous about the PS5.
Yeah, I mean it's fair to be nervous because you would think that they would want to talk about it, but they haven't.
Especially when you got Microsoft handing like a live video, not live video, or essentially a reveal with Austin Evans on YouTube is like, you can get deep down into what the Xbox Series X is going to be. We have nothing on the PS5 other than pictures of dev kits and controllers.
Yeah, and they actually released a picture of it back in last year, in November, right?
The dev kit, yeah. Or are you talking about the Xbox Series X?
The Xbox, what I mean.
Yeah, we've known what it's going to look like for a while.
Game Awards 2019.
That's right. I think that's a good thing to come away with, though, is maybe we need to hear more about these consoles, or at least know they're coming out on a specific date instead of like, hey, they're already out in stores on shelves, go get one. Like, what?
Yeah.
Do we think that the Saturn was the single biggest reason why Sega ended up failing in the hardware market or pulling out of the hardware market?
Sega was just very mismanaged. There was a lot of internal stuff. Sega of Japan and Sega of America were never on the same page. You could look at Sonic the Hedgehog. That's why Sonic CD came out, because Sega of Japan wanted Sonic to be one way, and Sega of America wanted Sonic to be another way. And that's why you got Sonic 2 and Sonic CD that came out, and they were really very different games, especially when you look at the level structure of it, because they were never on. I mean, in this horribly written book, The Complete Sega 32X Guide, written by me, the intro of it is the vice president of, the director of marketing at Sega. I spent most of my time trying to kill the Sega 32X. Like, that's how crazy this company was. The people hated some of the products that were coming out and never believed in some of these products. But, you know, you had these two conflicting forces of Sega of Japan and Sega of America never being on the same page, and it just never was going to work.
Anybody that wants to know more about the 32X, though, definitely go to Amazon. Just type in RGT85 32X. Boom. There's the book.
You know how I said I wild hair up my ass? That's what this book was. I literally woke up one day. I was like, I want to write a book on the Sega 32X.
I love how Skype just blurred out the entire time you were showing us your book. It's like, no, we're just going to focus on RGT here.
That's fine. Let's try this.
There you go. Yep. Now it's focusing on the book. Yeah, I've seen that before. You put it on your channel. I've thought about picking up some of these before because both you and I saw NES Punk had his couple books out. They're interesting to me because I find that kind of stuff very interesting. I used to look this kind of stuff up on the internet and kind of compile the information for myself, but having a book with all of it in it, that's pretty appealing.
And you could buy 3 of my books for the price of 1 of Pat's. So, I mean...
It's a value. Saying. You can buy 3 of them and hand them out to all your friends.
Exactly.
Anyways, I think answering the question from my own perspective, I don't think the Saturn could possibly be the single biggest factor.
No, I definitely don't think so.
And I think you might have hit the nail on the head with having two organizations completely out of sync in Sega of America versus Sega of Japan. Especially when you're going up against somebody like Nintendo of Japan and Nintendo of America, who seem like they're always on the same page, especially since Reggie was at the helm. They were very, very in sync, and you can see that the difference between Sega in the 90s versus Nintendo of the last decade, it's night and day.
Yep. And it's a shame because I love Sega consoles. I always felt that they tried to do things differently. Whether it worked or not was a different subject, but they at least tried. You know, they tried to innovate. They tried to, you know, do things that were, you know, different, but unfortunately it didn't work out.
Mm-hmm. With that being said, the Saturn is still a really cool console, and I eventually intend to get one at some point in my life. Either that or a Polymega, I guess.
Yeah, Polymega, man. That thing, the base version plays all the CD games, and you can do PS1, Neo Geo CD, Saturn, and I hear you can play backup copies of your games.
With that being said, as always, I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
And I'm RGT.
And we will see you
next CHRILLCAST.